Well, I have bad news. And it's that Hartford VanDyke, the author of The Skeleton in Uncle Sam's Closet and Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, has passed away. He died Saturday, April 8th, excuse me, and in a hospital, in a local hospital. He had fallen on Friday, apparently, and fallen between his bed and a piece of furniture and couldn't get back up. His wife was too weak to lift him. She's 93, so he called the ambulance and they came and got him, took him to town, to the hospital. They tried to hook him up to things. He was a Christian Scientist, so there was none of that. And the next day he passed away. He was starving to death. He had lost his teeth from malnutrition. He told me his wife wasn't feeding him and he didn't know how to cook. And so he wasn't eating. That was what he told me. I think he was a little bit looking for sympathy, but he'd complained before that his wife hadn't been feeding him, and he didn't. She works at the food bank. You would think that they had food, but apples and oranges or something. But anyway, yeah, his teeth had started. When I last saw him about a month ago, his teeth were almost completely gone. He couldn't chew. Everything had to be put in a blender, which is a horrible way to live. But he said things didn't taste good and he didn't feel like eating. And I thought, well, yeah, if you're drinking it through a straw, I can imagine it's pretty awful. But his friend Mike came over and told me today that he passed away. And even though the last time I saw him, I could tell he was dying. And I was hoping he had hope. I gave him things to do to get some longevity. It's a liquid nutrient, really good. It's plant-based vitamins. And I'd given him that stuff before, so he knew what it was. I gave him some other things to take. His hands were cold. He probably needed B1, so I told him to look into taking B1 and some other nutrients. But I don't think he maybe didn't. Maybe he tried magnesium, different things like this. But I think he might have been so far gone. I think he knew he wasn't going to live long too, because he was very short, very abrupt. If Mike or I started to say something and he was still processing a thought, he was a very methodical thinker, speaker. If we broke in to say something, he would "You're not listening." He would just get really mad. It's like, okay, sorry. But he would get a little bit like that before. So I'd interrupt him now and then over the years, and he'd have a fit, but not like this. It was like, I've got to get this out. I've got to tell. And he wanted to write a second part 2 to Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. He was quite, as a matter of fact, when he came by last summer, he said it was all up here. He needed to get it on paper, but he didn't know how to transcribe. And as a matter of fact, I had a computer I was going to give him, because he did have computer knowledge. He ran the computer lab over at the library for quite a while. Anyway, he had big plans. He didn't plan on dying. I think he knew he was going to, but he didn't plan to. He was a Christian Scientist, so like I said, there were no transfusions, there was no hookup for him. His mom was also a Christian Scientist. Oddly enough, he didn't believe in God. He thought everything was God, and God was everything, like the plants and the trees and all. It's a pagan type thing, I guess, but that's what he believed in. And he strongly believed that. We actually had discussions, because I'm a Christian, and we discussed the Bible and all this. He would quote the Bible. He knew the Bible in to some degree, but he didn't believe in God. And it's like, well, why would you even quote the Bible if you don't believe it's true? I like to mess with him a little bit, make him think, because he was pretty hard to top. He was a very smart guy. So anyway, he had planned to teach kids. He wanted to teach kids how to make crystal radios. And he had brought things over to put out in my shop, and he was going to have classes out there. And so I would have had it somewhere else, because it was an old truck shop. It was really dirty and nasty. But he had bought benches and some other things, some chairs, and put those out there. He had boxes of jars and things like this to put the little parts and stuff. And he had me saving cat food cans for him. And I put some of those out there for him. But when he was here last time, he wanted to go out and shop, but there was about a 6-foot pile of snow in front of the door because I don't know why my dad did this, but he put the entry door at the edge of the eave, so all the snow fell down in front of it. And I told him he'd have to come back in about a month, which will be now, to get into it. Well, it turns out it actually melted within the week, but they didn't come back. He did call me, and before I came on, he called me 3 times the day after he was here, middle of March. And I figured, he'll call back or he'll come by, because he didn't want me calling his house. So I never called him back. He said his wife would get jealous, cause a big fight. That's what he told me. So I never called him. I never called his phone, ever, even though I had his phone number. So he called me the day after he was here, and I just listened. I wasn't even sure if he left a message. I didn't look. I looked a few minutes ago, and he left me a message. I'll play it for you. You can hear how you'll be able to hear how weak his voice is.
Hi, Christy, with Hartford. If you give me a call, my telephone number you'll probably have 5383039. Thank you.
He had never called me before, and he screwed up his phone number, which makes sense. But he sent me 2 more messages that day. A few minutes later, and he said he'd called many times when it had only been once. Maybe he called somebody else by accident. He never asked me to call him, ever. In the years, I've known him for like 15 years, and he's never asked me to call him. And I was shocked when I just played it and heard, and now I feel bad because I didn't. That was the last chance I had to talk to him. Not the first time something like that has happened to me. You'd think I'd learn, but whatever it was, he wanted to move here. He asked me if he could move out in my shop because he's getting a divorce from his wife, 93-year-old wife. He did file when he was here. He said he was going to, and apparently he did. He meant business. He said he couldn't live with her anymore, but he asked me if he could move out in my shop and sleep out there. It's like, absolutely not. Are you kidding me? There's no heat. It's damp. You can see outside from under the wall. No, it's dirty. He would have died the first night. He wouldn't even have lived through that. And Mike said he had a camper he could move into. I don't know what happened there because Hartford fell at home. So I don't know what happened that he didn't move into the camper over at Mike's house, which is a shame because he probably would still be alive. But anyway, yeah, it took a while for it to sink in because I was so used to having him drive by. You know, he'd come randomly. I never knew when he was coming. Sometimes he'd call, but usually he wouldn't. And I gave him the combination to the gate and to the shop so he could get in whenever he wanted to. But yeah, he was in such bad shape. Yeah, when he was here, I fed him. I gave him some scrambled eggs and sausage that I chopped up really fine and put cream and butter in it, so give him some nutrients. He was quite hungry. He ate the whole thing, and there's quite a bit there. And hot tea. He was having problems because of his teeth. He had a lot of, I don't know, drool or something. So he's in bad shape. He was just in really bad shape. I felt bad for him. I didn't know what to do. I did what I could. I gave him the advice I could, and it was good to see him. He was wearing an old coat. I gave him a down coat because he was so frail and so cold all the time. He'd be out in the middle of winter, like 15 degrees, and he's wearing like a jean jacket type coat. And I knew he was cold because he didn't have any meat on his bones. He was always wearing his shoes. He would have like safety pins holding his shoes together, like a mad scientist type. He was so typical. Or tape or something, or string. It was so interesting. But he wore the thin nylon socks like they were in the 50s, and he made me cold just looking at him. And this last time he was here, I asked him, I gave him a down coat, and I said, "Where's the coat I gave you?" I gave him a nice puffy warm down coat. He was afraid to take it in the house in case his wife saw it. This was 2 years ago, maybe it was about a year ago. He says, "I don't want my wife to see it because then she'd think I was seeing somebody and there'd be a big stink and we'd be fighting." And it's like, okay, so I said, just keep it in your car for a while, and then Like, keep it in your car for, if you have to go outside, put it on. But I said, then you can say later, just say you've had it for a while. And she won't know because you will have had it for a while. Don't lie to her. I don't know whatever happened to the coat. I never saw him wear it. So he was here the other day, and he was wearing a coat I recognized. It had a fake fur collar around it, and it was like kind of like a Carhartt coat. And I asked him about it. I said, I've seen that coat before. There's a picture of you online wearing that coat. And he goes, oh yeah. He says, my dad gave me this. He says, I like it because my dad gave it to me. And his dad's been dead a long time. So it was, he looked up to his dad. The Skeleton in Uncle Sam's Closet. Y'all, if you haven't read that, you need to read it. There's a free download of that. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick on my computer. HartfordVanDyke.com used to be a working, yep, there it is, it's still there. Let me pull it up as a share. It says invalid link. I'm hoping you guys can see this. They're selling his books here. He did sell some books to people on Patriot Soapbox when he was on air with me some time ago, and he didn't get them all mailed out, and I feel bad about that, and he felt really bad about that too. He planned on getting them out. He couldn't find a printer. He needed somebody to print them for him, but he never forgot. I think it weighed on his mind quite a bit. So anyway, this is no longer pertinent. This is his old phone number, the one he gave me on my message. But you could hear how weak his voice was. He wanted to come on air with me again, but he was barely whispering. I had to sit really close to him to hear him when he was here last time. And I said, Hartford, I'd love to have you on, but people won't be able to hear you. And I wonder, I'd love to have heard him. I would love to have had him on, but like I said, if you can't hear him, there's no point. It was very tiring for him to be here. As a matter of fact, when he left, he was here for 3 hours. That's the longest he has ever stayed. And it was like, I think he knew. And I told him I have to go on air. And I was actually late getting on air because one of the hosts covered for me for a little bit, but to say goodbye to him and walk him to the door and everything, it took a while. And that was the last time I ever saw him. These books, he gave me, I think, all of these. He tried to give me all, and he thought he had, and I'm thinking he did. I don't see, there was a free download for this. The following writings and books have been released into the public domain. Yes, he wanted the public to have these. Portions of these writings are available on the internet at Yahoo and Google, etc. Simply type Hartford VanDyke into the internet search subject window. By putting the name in quotation marks, you can limit the search to the name. Oh, my birds, I apologize. You will find all kinds of opinions on the internet in favor of and against this material. The prices given below are for the stated writings. Supporting material might be added. He always tucked other things in. All printed material is sent as loose leaf reprint masters so that it can be reprinted easily. Do not let the pages get out of order. That's Hartford. You will also receive update information. All of these writings can be sold for a profit. So if you wanted to reprint and sell them, you could do that. All prices include the cost of postage. He lost money on this, by the way. I can't remember what he told me. Because these books, this is small. The Skeleton in Uncle Sam's Closet. I don't know if he printed this up or if he still had the newspaper version. He gave me the newspaper version of it. The Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars is fairly big, but he would send them out in the mail. I said, you need to get book rate. It's way cheaper, but he was sending it out regular mail, and it was costing like $20 to send them out. I can't remember what the guy was charging him to print them. Fundamental Principles and Processes of Commercial Law. So he wrote all these different things here. Worth going out and oh, here we go. Brenda MC. I'm not sure who that is. It says the above was written by Hartford VanDyke in the back of his bank book. I have uploaded some digital copies. Some are much clearer than others, but all are readable, of his works listed above. My request is this: if you download one of his books below and find it interesting or helpful, please drop a donation to Hartford. Well, or his wife now that he's passed away. He works long hours, and he did, trying to help people and receives little in financial remuneration for it. He lived a very poor life. I have to tell you guys, he was one of the most impoverished people I ever met. Let's bless Hartford as he has blessed us by freely sharing the information he is learning from his long years in the legal system. So you can tap on that. There's the coat he was wearing. That's the coat he was wearing when he was here. This is a really good, I'll probably be covering these on my show now that he's passed away again in his memory. He loved being on air. And on his videos on my YouTube channel are the most popular, I think, of all. People are still looking for his items. So anyway, so you can click on the links and they will take you, and you can print these out like she said. Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. Just come up here to this download. If you want to print it, there's the print button. This is 45 pages long. Fundamental Principles. This one's really long, I think. Yeah, 135 pages. The Fundamental Principles and Processes of Commercial Law. I'm going to download all these again, just in case somebody takes them offline. Public Wealth Rebate Bank Account Information for case number. He was trying to give money away that he got. It was an interesting situation. I'll see if Mike can explain it on here. He had in trust money that was owed to him by the state of Washington. And with accrued interest, it came to, I think he said, a couple $2 billion. He told me again just last time I saw him. It's hard to remember. But he did a lot of research on this. He went to jail for one of these things. I think this, How to Create Currencies for Local Communities. Wrote that in 2002. The Right to Keep and Bear Liens in 2013. I knew him by that time. The Bank Book Using the Public Wealth Tax Rebate Notes. Yeah, he gave me one of these. 2015. So, oops, wrong way. Off that anyway. So, anyway, Hartford has passed away. That would have been April 8th, 2023. And his suffering is over. I know that guy, but you know, mentally he was still going. He was constantly thinking up things he needed to do, and I think, like I said, he knew he didn't have a lot of time left. So he was always thinking, okay, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to teach these kids how to do this. He was very concerned that people understood the principles of our legal system to make sure they didn't get screwed. We're seeing a lot of effects of these things happening now, the abuse of the justice system right now. So anyway, I don't know what else to tell you except his address if you want to send something to his wife or his almost ex-wife. They didn't quite get that far. Probably the oldest people getting divorced in Washington state history, I would think. His Hartford VanDyke, Post Office Box 831, Kettle Falls, Kettle, Falls, Falls, Washington State, 99141 0831. So anyway, remember, it's hartfordvandyke.com where you can download the and his address is there, so you can if you lose it, you can go there, hartfordvandyke.com, and go in and download his books, because I don't know how long this site will stay up. I don't know who put it up, but you do have to pay to have these things up online, and one day that person might decide not paying for it anymore, so it might just disappear and you won't have access to it. So anyway, this is Chris Coy, and if you're interested, I may be reading some of his things on my show, Crossing the Matrix. I'm on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday evenings at 8 p.m. Pacific time, from 8 until 11 Pacific time on D Live on Rumble under Patriot Soapbox. Let's see where else. Vaughn Live. We're on a bunch of different channels, so D Live is the easiest one to find. It's pretty big for us. Anyway, yeah, it's bad news. We've lost quite a brain. The guy was amazing. So, yeah, I'm just still kind of processing it, but I thought people need to know, because otherwise, how are you going to know he's passed away? It's not something you're going to know about. And I can give you a little bit of details on it. And anyway, Godspeed to him. I hope he ends up in heaven. So I see him again. But I hope this has been of help to you. If you have any comments, good or bad, I don't know, I wouldn't put bad stuff in here to just make you look like a jerk. But if you have comments, put them under. I'll be putting this up on YouTube, Rumble, maybe pilled.net, a couple places. So anyway, that's all. Check it out.